Hey, what's up, y'all? I just want to come on here and talk about a topic that I feel like is super, super important to everybody, really. I feel like this topic alone, if we could have a greater understanding of it, it would change things exponentially across the globe. So, the topic that I want to cover is overcoming trauma. And like many of y'all have experienced, I've also experienced trauma in my lifetime. As a child, I grew up in a household. My dad, he believed in the old-fashioned way of doing things. Whooping ass. I'm just going to be blunt about it. And we caught that. And so it left an impact. I grew up fearful, and so I can't imagine the psychological effects that had and how it formulated my thought process as I began to grow up. And then eventually that led to me growing up in a single parent household because my mother and him didn't work out, which that happens in life. But so I'm not dwelling on the past. This is not a pity party. This is just factual information that I feel like people need to hear explained out because I'm sure a lot of people can relate to it. So I grew up in the single parent household, oldest of six. Oldest of six. So I took on some responsibilities at a young age that I really didn't realize was responsibilities. I just looked at it as I just got to do what I got to do. But it definitely left an impact, and it definitely left an impression on me, especially towards my father, that was very negative. I'm talking about to the point where I had, real negative thoughts about what I would do when I got older and all this other kind of stuff. I'm sure some of y'all can relate. And so fast forward, into I would say like my early 20s, I got to a point where I realized that I was just really overreacting with anger when people did me wrong. And so when I really sat down and thought about it, and I could only attribute it to the anger that I still had towards my father, which led me on the path to forgiveness eventually, because I did not want to let those emotions be the controlling factor in my life anymore. And I'm not saying that it happened overnight. From the time that I had that realization, I think I was like 24. And I think it took me until 28 where I could really feel the forgiveness in my heart, the understanding, and all of that. So, I wanted to share that from my childhood, and then I also experienced trauma in my adulthood, in my adult life. The family that I thought I had with my children's mother, it came to an abrupt end, and that one really affected me a lot because I looked at it like I was in a position to break the generational curses that had been passed down from generation to generation, and I was in a position to break it, and then boom, it just got taken away from me, and so it had a huge impact on me. I went into a very low state of depression, all kind of crazy thoughts, really feeling like I was at rock bottom, and just to be blunt, just ready to throw in the towel. Like, what's the point of doing any of this anymore? You know what I'm saying? But I was able to reflect on the fact that I had previously forgiven my father and the things in my childhood. And so I was like, well, if I can do that, then I can get through this too. So eventually I did. I did find a way to find forgiveness and move past that situation as well. And I'm super glad that I did because the strength that it took for me to endure that is something that I still have now. So that's the thing. When you push past these situations that happen in your life, the strength that you gain from pushing through it is something that stays with you forever. So I just want to cover real quick, just, because that's just a little quick backstory on my life and my experience with trauma, to not go into too much detail because this ain't about me, this is about all of us. But I feel like the first step in overcoming trauma is acknowledgement. Because if you don't acknowledge that there was some type of trauma, or you don't acknowledge the trauma that that happened in your life that still has an effect on you, then you have absolutely zero chance of overcoming it whatsoever. So the first step is acknowledging it. What happened? Who did it? How did it make you feel? All of that, etc. The second step is understanding it. And understanding to me is really just kind of putting yourself in the mind of the other person. Because in my heart, I truly feel like nobody just wants to be bad or do bad things, quote unquote, because everything is relative, good and bad, evil, whatever, And so I feel like nobody wants to, like, nobody grows up and say, when I grow up, I want to hurt people's feelings. I want to hurt people physically, blah, blah, blah. So you got to put yourself in the mind of the person who caused the trauma, because 9 times out of 10, they experienced some type of trauma in their life, whether it was their childhood or their adult life. And so that's where the understanding comes in. It doesn't make it right what happened, but it definitely helps you understand how that person could have done such a thing. And so that's super, super important, is understanding. So the first step is acknowledgement. The second step is understanding. And the third step, which comes from the understanding, is the unconditional love part, because you put yourself in that person's shoes. If you were them and went through what they went through, how would it have affected you? Because if you was so strong where you could say that it wouldn't have had any effect on you, then what you experienced wouldn't have had any effect on you, but it did. So you weren't strong enough to just withstand it with no type of effect. And so you have to really put yourself in that perspective and realize that that person that caused trauma or pain to you, they were not able to deal with it either. Either nobody sat down and talked to them about it, they wasn't able to get it off their chest, or they just was in a state of denial. They just didn't adhere to step one, which is acknowledgement. And the fourth step that I want to really conclude with is forgiveness, because after the acknowledgement and the understanding, and then the unconditional love, comes the forgiveness. Because once you can unconditionally love the person who caused you the trauma, then you are able to forgive them. And once you forgive a person, you are liberated. You don't. And forgiveness, I really want to make a point here. Forgiveness is not saying that I'll never forget what happened to me. I forgive you, but I'll never forget it. If you say that, that's not forgiveness. Forgiveness is when you can remember the things that caused the emotional trauma for you, but they no longer cause you to become emotional. That's real forgiveness. And I want y'all to catch that. I'm going to say that again. Forgiveness is when you can remember the situation or the scenario that caused emotional trauma for you or pain, and you no longer have that emotional response to it anymore. And so really, that's all I got for y'all. I don't want to be too long-winded, but I feel like that's a real brief summary of overcoming trauma. And I hope that this has value for you. I hope you're able to reflect on it, watch this video again, really meditate on those steps. And I hope that it helps you overcome any trauma that might be still in your life, because once you overcome the trauma, then you can take off. You know, the only thing that's holding you back from achieving the things that you really want to achieve in life is that trauma that still exists from either your childhood or your adult life. So with that being said, y'all, I love y'all, and I will be coming on here and sharing more wisdom from my life experiences in hopes that I can help as many other people overcome some of the things that I've overcome in my life. All right, peace.